Good evening. We're here with Unit 3 Triangle Properties, and Day 7, we're going to talk about the Isosceles base theorem. First, we have some warm-up problems based on what we did in Day 6, which talks about, in this case, ordering the sides from shortest to longest. You'll notice that in this problem, we have our angles of 55 degrees, and 70. So because we're looking for we're looking to rate the sides, we need to examine the angles from smallest to largest. So when we look at our angles of 55, and 70, well, we've got a tie here between the 55s, and 70 is definitely bigger than that. So we know that that side is going to be the largest for sure. And then the 55s are going to be a tie, so you can call them small or medium. And since I'm looking for the angles, I'm looking for the sides, my bad. Looking for the sides, I want to use my two letters. So YX is the first small one. And then, so side YX was right here. And then we've got another one that was a tie. It doesn't matter the order. So side ZX. And last but not least, we have ZY. And the thing to remember about this lesson is small angles are always going to be across from sides that are small in length. Large angles will always be across from large sides. In question number 2, we're asked to do the reverse. We are given side lengths. I know that because 22 is written on the edge of the triangle. 10 is also written on the edge. And 22. Hey, we've got another tie here in our side lengths. Well, for sure, this 10 is the small one. So that means when I'm ranking them, angle C is going to come first. And then the other two angles, since it's a tie, we can put them in any order. We can put D first and then B, or vice versa. And there we go. In both of these situations, our triangles are isosceles. Isosceles means that two sides are congruent. And that's going to come into play today with our isosceles base theorem. Let's look at what that theorem is. If you have two congruent sides, in other words, an isosceles triangle, then the angles opposite those sides are congruent. And we call those angles base angles. So to give you just a little picture, here's a triangle. If these are my congruent sides, then those stars are the base angles. And those base angles will be congruent as well. Also, the theorem states if two angles are congruent, then the sides opposite those angles will also be congruent. So when we look here at number 1, you can see that we have congruent angles marked by the little rainbow markers right here that I'm highlighting in yellow. Those are base angles. So you were given base angles. And from that, you would then know that x is going to be congruent to 10. And that's because of the theorem that we just talked about. So x is equal to 10. In problem number 2, they gave me congruent sides by the tick mark here. So you always need to use those congruent sides and work backwards to figure out what are the base angles. Is the base angle up here, where I just put that red circle? Or is it the x, or is it the 52? That's the important thing. And we're going to take the side length and we're going to go to the opposite side to find one base angle. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other. So the x has a rainbow marking, the 52 has a rainbow marking, therefore they are congruent. So x is 52 degrees. Very simple problem, just using the base angle theorem in opposite directions. Number 3, though, can be a little bit tricky. You have sides again. Here's x, that is congruent because of that tick mark right here that my cursor is pointing. I just put a little green slash on it. But then there's another tick mark. So the other base angle is across from that. I don't know that. But what I do know is the other angle is 70. 70 is not a base angle. We do know that 3 angles added together equals 180 degrees. We know one of those angles is 70. One of them is x. And the third one happens to be congruent to x. So you know what? Let's call that third one, the question mark, x. And we've got a little algebra equation. We've got 70. X and x make 2 of them, 2 x's. And we can solve this for x by subtracting 70, getting 2x equals 110, and then dividing by 2, which gets you 55. So those base angles are both 55 degrees. 55 degrees plus 55 degrees plus 70 degrees equals the interior angles of a triangle, 180 degrees. So these 3 problems are some very basic ways that we use the isosceles base theorem. And of course, we're never going to stop there. Let's look at the next step. Wow, that's some crazy triangles. We're trying to get to x. I'm going to highlight x here so you can easily see where I'm looking. And that's an angle. The only thing they told me right now is 60. That's the only thing. Well, we can go and we can find my congruent angles using the isosceles base theorem. Here I have congruent sides. So I'm going to highlight this triangle so we can talk about triangle. Sorry. We're going to focus our attention right here first, because we're going to walk our way around the picture to get to x. So in that blue triangle, we see that there are 2 congruent sides. What are the congruent angles then? Well, one of them's here, because its opposing side is here, and the other one's here. Hey, those are vertical. Vertical angles are congruent. So what that means is that's 60, which means this one is 60. And I don't know that one. But I do know 60 plus 60 plus the question mark equals 180. Or 180 minus 60 minus 60 gets me my question mark of 60 degrees. So instead of question mark, I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to put 60 degrees. Oh, looky, looky. I've got another pair of vertical angles. So this is 60, so that's 60. You can probably see where this is going. Oh, I've got another isosceles triangle here. Where are my base angles? Because if I was given the sides, then my base angles are congruent. Oh, that 60 is congruent to here, so that's 60. Oh, man. Hey, isn't this an equilateral triangle? 60 plus 60 plus 60 is 180. Hey, so this is 60. So does that mean the x is 60? That's a lot of 60s. It does not mean the x is 60 because these two angles are a linear pair, and linear pairs are sub 180 degrees. So to find the value of x, we will take 180 minus 60 and get 120. And that is my final answer for x. So good problem because it just talks us through finding the base angles if I'm given congruent sides. Not so great because everything's 60. So let's look at number 5 here, which that's not going to be the case. Now we're going in reverse. We're trying to end at the angle x, and I was given 84 to begin with. Well, those are a linear pair. Those are sub. So 180 minus 84. Let's run that calculation. We get 96. So the other part of this linear pair is going to be 96 degrees. Well, I've got some congruent sides, so my base angles are congruent. That 96 is not a base angle because we have to go across. But we don't know what those are. They're going to be the same thing, but we don't know what they are. So I'm going to put question mark, question mark. Or you know what? Let's just call them x. We've got enough question marks in our life. X, x. So to find those x's, there are 3 angles in a triangle. They all add up to 180. So I'm just doing this setup so we can kind of visualize what's what, knowing that we need 3 angles to do this. One of them is 96. The other 2 we don't know, but they are the same thing, so they're both going to be called x. So that means we have 2 of them. We have this 96, and it's equal to 180. So we're going to subtract that 96 and then divide by 2. (180 minus 96) is 84, and then divide that by 2. So 84, divide that by 2, 42. Yeah. So instead of x's there, we can put 42. But then I've got vertical angles, so I know this is 42. The question is that one of my base angles in that isosceles triangle? Hey, it is. So that's congruent to that one. So this is 42 on the other side. Hey, those are vertical. So the x is 42. So definitely a little bit step up. But if you know your vertical angles, you know your supplement, linear pair supplementary ideas, you can definitely walk your way around those problems. Find which ones are your base angles though. That is super, super important. All right, let's look at some threes. Miss P is building a dollhouse for her daughter. She is currently installing panels to create the roof, but she wants to make sure she angles it correctly. The roof is going to be shaped like an isosceles triangle. So let's draw my own roof that I can label. Isosceles means two sides are congruent. She made the angle at the top of the roof 98 degrees. Oh, we forgot to listen to 98 degrees today in class. My bad. Calculate the measurement of the base angles. So X is a base angle, and those are congruent. All right. Well, this is basically now just like a 2. We know that 3 angles in a triangle add up to be a total of 180 degrees. We know one of them is 98. We know the other ones are the same, so we'll call them both X. So we've got 98 plus 2X equals 180. We'll subtract our 98 from the equation. My calculator turned off. 180 minus 98 is 82. And then when we cut that in half, we'll get 41. So both of those angles are 41 degrees. Both of those corner base angles. There we go. Let's look at our next 3. Greg is building a rope obstacle course. He has a basic layout but needs help with some calculations. The boards he used for side AC, AD, and DB are all the same length, which basically is saying they are congruent. So AC is right here, AD is in the middle, and DB is over here. I used all the same tick mark because they're all going to be the same length. Angle DAB is 66. DAB, watch my mouse pointer, DAB. Oh, sorry, that's DAC. My bad. DAB is 66. Angle CDB is a right angle. Calculate angle DAC. Well, somehow we got to get to that question mark. That's DAC. We do have an isosceles triangle here in the bottom, which means that the base angles are congruent. So 66 is one of my base angles, and the other base angle is right here. So I'm going to also write a 66 there. So we can find the third angle in that yellow triangle. It's not 90. The whole thing is 90, but we're just interested in that little bit in the middle there. So that's where we can take 180 minus 66 twice. And that gets me 48. So that little centerpiece is 48. Well, that I can use to go to the other triangle because the whole thing is 90. So that's a complementary idea, and if I take 90 minus 48, I will find the complement, which is in the other triangle, which is 42. That is also an isosceles triangle, so that is congruent to the other base angle. So you know what? I'm going to put 42 there. And then I can solve that question mark because I know blank plus blank equals 180. My three angles are my blanks. I know two of them in blue are 42. And the question mark is what I'm looking for. So that's 84. And if I want to find the question mark, all I have to do is subtract 84 from 180. Question mark is 96 degrees. Not quite 98 degrees, a great band, but 96, I'll take it. And there is our 3.0s for the isosceles base angle theorem. Thanks for watching. Make sure you ask your teacher any questions.